because I had a horrible relationship with my body. My lung collapsed minutes after I was born. I tore my ACL, LCL, MCL, meniscus in one shot. So I basically had a number of hours before they would have to amputate my leg. The doctor messed it up, nicked an artery. I was bleeding internally. Had to get blood transfusions. If I make it to 30 before I'm in a wheelchair, I'll be happy. And somewhere along that way, I listened to this podcast with this crazy Dutch guy named Wim Hof. And he's talking about, that we're stronger and healthier and more capable than we think. And he was sharing his story, and it really resonated with me. So I did the next responsible thing, and I went on his website, and I booked a retreat to Iceland.
You go all in.
Yeah, I was like, it was one of those things that this just feels right. I don't know why. Cutting into the glacial ice and doing immersions for 10 minutes, like, this is incredible, and how my body's working from hormetic stress or willful, conscious dose. You're doing it to yourself. Incredible benefits with that. And it makes me emotional just talking about it now for building that connection to feel at home in your body. How many people can say that they feel at home in their body? The cold is serving you the medicine you need right there in that moment.
All right, I'm here with Joshua Dean Church. He is the CEO and co-founder of Edge Theory Labs, a cold plunge therapy tub, biohacking, all the breath worker, life optimization coach. You're everything. Josh, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure it is to be here with you, brother.
Dude, it's exciting to be here. Just because I've also got to see some of I got to know you first more, I think, as and I don't want to say mindset coach, because how would you describe like your high performance coach? For sure, bar none, right? And I got to know you in that light, and then I got to see you kind of in the background build this cold plunge company.
Yeah.
And it was just really neat to see where you've grown and gone and what you're doing in the world and how you're impacting it. So
thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that, and all the things, and the thing that the through line, if I can create a title or something that expands across all those different realms or buckets, is that I'm a passionately curious student of life. I love learning, and I'm super curious. I always have been. My mom always said when I was younger, I was always looking at the world with these, childlike eyes, and something I've really strived to maintain, especially as you get older and can be a bit jaded, right? Yeah. I've tried to keep those beginner eyes, and I've always looked at the world with a lot of that sense of wonder. And I've followed the learnings, the things that feel interesting to me, things that I'm forced to explore on my path of obstacles that come up, and I got to figure out solutions around. I just follow the learnings. And so the learnings led me to, as we first interacted, being director of operations at High Impact Coaching, where I worked with Xander Fryer and the team and helping grow that business, working with hundreds of clients around the world and developing that set of skills from operations, sales, coaching. Found a real big interest in mindset coaching, because we don't lift our finger without the mental impulse to do so first. We don't lose weight without the mindset that allows us to be in alignment with someone that loses weight. So I was very gravitated towards that, and then that led to just all the other things, and just following the learnings has allowed me to be where we're sitting here today at our Edge Theory Labs HQ in Carlsbad, California, having this beautiful conversation. Yeah.
And actually thinking about it, your podcast too is called Finding Direction.
Find the Others.
Find the Others.
That's right. Finding the other people that are on that wavelength like yourself. I think we connected very, very quickly and very easily because you're one of the others. It's always seeking that growth, seeking that, unlocking that best version of themselves, and on that wavelength, and not here to just talk about surface level, but to get down to the real stuff and to drop in. And I always appreciate that about our interactions and conversations as we get past surface and get into that depth. I mean, we're talking about 3D level stuff and soul physicality within 10 minutes of catching back up in the first time. So
yeah, man. So talk about I never understood. I didn't even know you were so passionate into cold therapy, and it's all the rage. But I think you're doing something different and unique. So first of all, just talk to me about why you're so passionate about cold therapy and how you got into it.
It's a great question. It's kind of funny because I'm a kid from San Diego, California. Like, I hated the cold growing up. I really, really hated the cold.
I just moved to Idaho.
Yeah.
And I always say, like, I'm a Cali kid. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I can't stand the snow. I want the sun back from California.
Totally. I always considered myself a sun creature. I'm like, give me the warm sand. I'll bury myself in the sand. But I went to Ohio for college. I was there for 2 years, and I got to experience winter out there, right? It humbled me, and it further improved my love for the warmth and my hatred for the cold. And taking a back seat, it feels like cold was the tool that I was waiting for to discover on my health and wellness journey. You hear people that are on their health and wellness journeys. We're all on a journey of some kind. We're all on some sort of healing journey. Some of us aware of it, others not so aware of it. But those, especially in this space of high performers, of entrepreneurs, of coaches, we're all on this healing journey of some kind. And we all have tools that really resonate with us and that help us and propel us. They're like those speedways in Mario Kart. They help us forward on our path. And yoga was the starting point for me. I did my first yoga class. It was a sculpt, one of those hot power weighted classes, and got to it from a cool workout that, funny enough, my dad and my uncle took me to. And it was a good workout. And then at the end, we did Shavasana. So we were laying down for stillness for a second. I was like, oh, that was a good workout. But what was that thing we did at the end? That Shavasana thing. That was cool. And so I went back again, and the teacher was like, oh, come take one of our other classes. So I started developing this practice for yoga, and this is, 10, 15 years ago at the time. And so I just started going deeper.
How old are you now, though?
28.
Yeah, so you're a young guy doing yoga.
Yeah. It's 10 years ago. 10 years ago. I was about 18.
And finding stillness.
Yes. And I had, at the time, though, I felt like I really needed that because I had a horrible relationship with my body. And what I mean by that is I had some injuries when I was younger. Physical injuries have been part of my path of overcoming since I was born. My lung collapsed minutes after I was born. The doctors didn't know how long I went without oxygen to my brain, so they didn't know if I was going to be brain dead until they were doing tests.
Wow.
So which is interesting because now I'm a breathwork instructor as well. So the breath and the lungs and increasing that lung capacity is everything it's about. So very interesting tie there. And then, I had through growing up, I had my normal bangs and bruises from sports and just being an active kid all over the place, right? Broken arm, this, that, whatever. But then in high school, I tore my ACL, LCL, MCL, meniscus in one shot in football, and I had to recover from that. That was a 9-month recovery, learning how to walk again and getting back on. And that was the first time I learned visualization, because as I would sit there on the PT table and she would be getting my range of motion back by really, really pushing, and it was so painful. And I would lay there and I would close my eyes and just breathe deeply, and I would visualize getting back on the football field and scoring a touchdown. Now, I played defense. I was an outside linebacker. I played defense, but for whatever reason, I was visualizing scoring a touchdown. And that got me through that recovery process of visualizing being back on the field with my boys, scoring a touchdown. First game back, I get a pick six, defensive interception, run it back for a touchdown to win the game in the last minute of the fourth quarter. And it was, and that came to fruition. I was like, whoa. I remember driving home like, is this a dream? Like, what? And that was like the first little nudge of, hey, we can create with our thoughts and using this pain or suffering to turn it into something positive. The year after, I had another season-ending injury, and this was a little something scary called compartment syndrome. So basically I got it in my quad. So my quad muscle, my right leg, got from a hard hit, and then a couple hits after those next weeks the compartment got filled with blood, so it was super swollen and there was no blood flow flowing down to my leg. So I basically had a number of hours before they would have to amputate my leg, and we didn't know this, right? So we went into the hospital finally to get some pain meds, and they were like, hey, we need to do surgery now. And so did surgery. Thankfully, it was resolved. I have full function of my leg, and I got this gnarly 12-inch scar on my quad from them doing a fasciotomy. But recovering from that was something that was unexpected, and it left me just really with this distrust of my body. When I got to college, I had this appendicitis, typical surgery. The doctor messed it up, nicked an artery. I was bleeding internally, had to get blood transfusions, had to almost go back in for another surgery. It was really sketchy. And so all of these situations are leading me to distrust my body. So when we fast forward to me discovering yoga, it was the first time I was like, whoa, body, I love you. Thank you. You're doing so much for me. Whoa. And I started building this relationship with my body instead of thinking like I'm going to be in a wheelchair by the time I'm 25, which was a belief that I had. I'm like, in my 20s, if I make it to 30 before I'm in a wheelchair, I'll be happy. That's not right to be planted in my mind, right?
Yeah.
So that yoga was the first, that Shavasana of stillness was like, whoa, okay, starting to understand that we're working with a body here. So that was my precursor that I feel like got me ready to be ready for the cold. Yep. And then that I became a yoga instructor because I took that very deep. Again, we talked about following the learning. I was curious about this. It started helping me heal and feel a lot better. So I just followed that learning, kept following one step in front of the next, ended up becoming a yoga instructor. Not teaching widely, but going through that process. And somewhere along that way, I listened to this podcast with this crazy Dutch guy named Wim Hof. And he's talking about, that we're stronger and healthier and more capable than we think. And he was sharing his story, and it really resonated with me. So I did the next responsible thing, and I went on his website and I booked a retreat to Iceland. I remember going to the kitchen. I was like,
I did Wim Hof's course. I just did the 10-week course. I
Yeah.
heard about him many years ago and just did a 10-week course. I didn't buy it. So
Yeah.
but you go all in.
Yeah, I was like, it was one of those things that this just feels right. I don't know why, but and there's no logic for me to do this, but I'm going to listen to my intuition here and take that step. It was quite a big step, but I took that step and I went out to Iceland, and I get there and I'm doing breath work for the first time, this deep breathing, and I start feeling this tingle that's in my scar site from my appendectomy, and it starts vibrating, and then it slowly trickles, works its way up to my throat, and then just start crying. I just release the biggest emotional release. I just started uncontrollably crying. And then my body guided me around to each of the sites, from my lung to my knee to my quad. And I just felt those scars vibrating and coming through and releasing. And I left that session just with such a respect and an understanding that, hey, I'm working with this body here. Like we were saying earlier, it's like I'm a soul that's having a human experience in this body, and this is my home. This is the one home I get, and I love you, body. Thank you. You've been through so much. Like, I'm sorry, right? You've been through so much, and it makes me emotional just talking about it now, for building that connection to feel at home in your body. How many people can say that they feel at home in their body? Not a lot. To feel truly at home and secure in your body, to feel the beauty and strength, and to put that to the test. And then going into the cold taught me how to surrender, how to relax into the intensity of a moment, and showed myself how strong my body really is, and that all those programs that we're running of you're going to be in a wheelchair and you're not healthy and you're going to have all these issues when you get older, all these little thoughts that go into my head started vanishing, to as I showed myself, wow, look how beautiful, innately beautiful, intelligent, and capable my body is for what I'm doing right now, climbing a mountain in minus temperatures and nothing but my shorts, cutting into the glacial ice and doing immersions for 10 minutes. Like, this is incredible, and how my body's working for me. So that's how I discovered, that's the long story long of how I discovered cold immersion and how and breath work, and how that became such a big tool for me on my journey.
So amazing. Okay, so I'm glad you shared that with me. When you go, so if you go out to Iceland with Wim Hof, you have to go in like a 10-minute submersion to get like certified, I'm guessing, or something. That's a tougher certification than I thought. Wow.
Yeah, so I just went back. I was in Spain earlier this spring doing or this winter doing my Wim Hof certification. So I'm a certified level 1 Wim Hof method instructor, and there's some things you do in that training. The more intense ones I actually did was with my mentor and coach in the space, Jorn de Bruin is his name. He was one of Wim's early teachers, the first one outside of Wim to lead retreats doing the Wim Hof method. So he's become a really close friend of mine, and he's the one who I've really learned from in the space. And yeah, we did some borderline things for sure, to say the least. We did some borderline things.
It was some early certification stuff.
Yeah, it was some exactly.
Wow. Okay. So you gain all this amazing knowledge. You have this really like out of body surreal experience.
Yeah.
You're learning so much. Then what happened for you to go, I've got to bring this to the world. There's at Morosco, there's other cold plunges out there, but what made you go like, no, I got to make a company because that's another step that people won't take, but you felt the need to. Yeah. So talk about that and the creation of Edge.
Yeah. It's a great question, and it's funny, but it didn't from that moment. It didn't go to I need to build a company to share this with the world. It went to when I came home. I need to be doing this for myself every day.
Yeah.
And in that pursuit of doing it for myself every day, I very quickly realized showers in Southern California don't get that cold. It doesn't matter. As cold as you turn them, especially during summertime, they just don't get that cold.
Yeah.
So I became very good friends with my the local liquor store down the street, and I would raid their chest freezer of ice every single day to get ice to put in my bathtub to fill up. That's what you did.
Yep.
And that became expensive, wasteful, and very effortful. So I kept doing it. I'm just like, all right, there's got to be a better way to do this. And at the time, this is 2 years ago, at the time, the company, the Cold Plunge, didn't exist yet either. And so there was nothing. I went to go look at. I'm someone who's going to invest in my health and my well-being. So I went to go look, and all I'm seeing are these companies like Morosco or Blue Cube or these big Renew Therapy, these big fixed wall tubs that are $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. And I'm like, that's out of my range. And even if I wanted to, I live in an apartment with a balcony. So I can't even if I wanted to purchase this, I can't even purchase this. But I'm going to crane it in. Like, that's not going to work.
At the time, I was living in San Francisco, same thing, 700 square foot house that I was renting. I wanted a cold plunge, but it was messy, and I'm in the biohacking community too, and biohackers, as you know, were buying freezers, outside freezers, and putting water. I'm like, that's okay of a method, but it's still not ideal. And so I think you're right. Like there wasn't really a good solution other than like a super high-end expensive solution like Morosco, which no shade on them. Great.
Totally.
I'm sure they're great
fantastic.
people, but just like it's just not ideal for me.
Yeah, it's great if you've got a multi-million-dollar mansion and you can have a nice setup for it. It looks beautiful. Like I still want to do that, right?
Yeah.
Like I still would absolutely do that. But at the time, it's like, no, that's way out of range and budget and just not practically possible. And so the next best option, like you said, is getting those chest freezers. You buy a chest freezer and you caulk the insides. You do some hacks to be able to put water in, plug it in to let it cool down. Couple things wrong with it. One, there's no temperature control. So sometimes you can open it and there's a block of ice, and sometimes it's just not cold at all. Two, it's not made for water, made for humans for that matter. So it's a super tight little coffin that you're sitting in and not comfortable whatsoever. It's really easy to damage and ding. You void the warranty second you get in there, and it's gonna conk out eventually because it's not built for that.
Yep.
And you can electrocute yourself, which happens. So that's another.
Whoops. Didn't know about that one.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I didn't know either. So I saw there was a Facebook group for at-home DIY chest freezer cold plunge. So I joined the group. There was like 1,500 people in it. And I went to my cousin, who's the handyman. I'm not a handyman. I'm like a hired task rabbit to mount the TV kind of guy, right?
Yeah.
And so my cousin is he's the handiest man I know and one of the smartest guys. Got kind of an engineering background. So I went to him. I said, "Hey man, can you help me hack a chest freezer?" And he's like, "Hack a chest freezer? Like what are you talking about?" And I was like, "Yeah, so I can do my ice baths with it." And he's like, "That's silly. If you want cold water, let's find a way to build cold water."
I love it.
And so we did a little cousin garage project together to find a way to build cold water. And we were just starting to train for our first Ironman triathlon together, something that him and I had been into for the previous years. And we loved pushing our bodies and testing ourselves in that way. And so we got an aquarium chiller. We saw the original prototype here. We got an aquarium chiller, a Rubbermaid tub. We hosed it, we piped it together, and we got a filter housing and a water pump. And it's this like messy thing. We call it the Frankenstein. It's just pieced together with off the shelf parts. But we were able to do it for like all in less than $2,000, and we're like, that's interesting. It's not that expensive to do it in this kind of piecemeal way. And more than anything, we were stoked because we had a way to use cold water every day. And when we were training, we noticed the most insane difference of being able to not have to go get ice and just have it cold, ready to go, clean. It made such a difference. We were using it all the time, and the results just speak for themselves. Felt better. We were feeling the recovery, the recovery time decreasing as well from hard workout to hard workout. Our mental focus, our energy, our happiness, mental well-being, all that was just like, this clearly something here. Mm-hmm. And when he was hooked on it as well, I was like, there's definitely something here. And so naturally we became advocates for this. So everybody we had come over to our garage, hit a little sauna, cold workout, and they were getting hooked too. And they were like, hey, can you build one of these for my house? Because I don't want to do the options. And we're like, okay, maybe there's a market for this, right? And that it was around that time. So it was around that time, which is only 18 months ago from now, when when the cold plunge launched, and they launched with that, that white acrylic tub, and they were the first to really disrupt the market with the price point of offering at-home cold immersion for $5,000 price point. Yeah. And they started selling like crazy, and I watched, and I was like, okay, they've just clearly showed that there's a market for at-home cold plunging at the $5,000 mark. It's a sweet spot in between $1,000 chest freezer and a $10,000 to $15,000 fixed wall tub, and they're doing it at $5,000. So I'm like, okay, there's proof of concept there, and I had watched that group of DIY chest freezers grow from 1,500 to 2,000 to 5,000 to 10,000, and seeing there's a momentum around this. I believe in this so strongly from the benefits I've seen, and I feel like there's this push that's going to bring this mainstream. So we launched just a year ago. And completely disrupted the market with being the first all-in-one portable solution. So we built our tub using the drop stitch inflatable technology like you see in stand-up paddle boards or military boats. That's super durable, inflatable, so you can stand on the sides of it, no deflections, but you can deflate it and pack it into a backpack. So it can easily go up to your apartment, or you can take it on the go. And then the chilling unit handles the refrigeration, the heating mode as well. It handles the filtration, putting filters in. So you have cold, clean water whenever, wherever. Regular electric plugs in, no plumbing, no electrician, super simple. And the thing we made sure it was Joshua proof. So there was not a tool required. Everything's hand tighten.
That's what I need.
Right? No tools required. And so, because as we really saw there was an opportunity for this, we're like, we got to differentiate ourselves and really do something that's disruptive. And we keyed in on portability so that I could put it in my place. The whole idea of this was so that I could use cold immersion every single day in my apartment. Thankfully, I can report back successfully. I'd use it every day. I've got a tub up in my apartment. I'm very happy about that, but became very passionate about sharing this with others and wanting to find accessible ways to share it with other people as well. And we were able to launch at that sub 5K price point as well to offer everything that Cold Plunge was offering at a stronger price point with a stronger 4 times as powerful unit and the portability, and that put us in a very good position to take advantage of the market and more people coming to cold immersion.
Dude, love that. And I love just the serendipity of how entrepreneurs how they are created, because a lot of times we're like, oh, like, is this a good idea? You had validation. You kept having people say, I want this, can you create this? And you're like, I guess this is an idea. Let me try. And you did it. And so I love just hearing the story behind it.
Thanks.
And then also, I hate to say this, but and this again, I'm not here to throw shade on anybody. I think Morosco's product is beautiful and wonderful, but I do think they're just missing the mark. But it's such a high price point. I'm like, guys, it's cold water. Like, I mean, I think there's ways we can do it. That's just my own personal thing.
Sure.
So I think that is disruptive what you're doing. And I also see just a lot of goodness. I think we're seeing a huge ram up of breath workers and people doing retreats, and this is the solution.
Absolutely.
Like, let's just pack it up and let's just go. I can bring one tub, I can go to Iceland, I can go wherever, and we can do a retreat, and here we go. We got the Edge Theory. So.
I brought 4 tubs down to Mexico and I did a retreat last June. Loaded in the car, drove right down, boom, we got cold immersion, so we can do a retreat in the middle of the summer in Mexico, but also have cold immersion as part of it. So it's a game changer for that.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the technology too, because I'm a big fan of, like you said, I don't Joshua proof. I like things Joel proof, and I don't like to clean a lot of stuff. And I think Cold Plunge uses like ozone, which is great for cleaning and sterilizing things. So talk about just some of what makes Edge, I think, Theory unique, other than the portability, which we know about.
Yeah, portability power is our big one as well. So
Yeah.
we put in a 1 horsepower commercial grade compressor so that we built it unintentionally commercial grade, but we built it so it could have a fast cool down time, because Cold Plunge, it's a 1/4 horsepower, so it'll take like 8 hours to bring it down to temp. So, which is fine if you're just setting it up once and leaving it there. But for our use case, when we make it portable, we wanted to make it faster than that so that I could, if I'm hosting a breathwork workshop, I can show up, set it up, and not have to use ice. So by the time I'm done doing my breathwork, my introduction, the water's sub 40 degrees. That was kind of the goal.
So like in an hour. Like
A lot of
breath work
exactly.
in an hour
Yeah, exactly. So in about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, it'll bring it down from tap down to freezing cold temperatures.
Wow.
So that's why we did 1 horsepower compressor, and the benefit of that too was that it can be used commercially. So we didn't really foresee this at the time, but gyms, fitness studios, we did a 30-day activation with Equinox here in Orange County. We work with a lot of gyms across the country, fitness studios, holistic spas, people that are going to their local spot to be able to get cold immersion. So now these people can purchase that, and they love the flexibility of the portability of it. So it's not this big now fixed wall tub that lives there forever, but they can take it down with them. They can take it to events. So the portability is paired really well with this power, the 1 horsepower compressor. And then we use a 20 micron filter that passes every 15 minutes, 100% of the water is recycled through, and then a non-chlorine, non-bromine-based sanitizer. It's like a hydrogen peroxide-based, really great sanitizer, so that I've had my water on my balcony for 3.5 months now, same water. I'll change it soon just to wipe down the tub and clean it out. So, a handful of times a year, you're switching out the water entirely, but other than that, it's good to go, like a pool.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, very cool. And then also it goes hot.
It does go hot, which is nice. And you can control it from your Wi-Fi app as well. So I can right now change my tub on my balcony to go over to hot mode. So it'll be hot tub by the time I get home tonight if I wanted to, which is cool.
Are you using the heat to sleep? Are you using, because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the studies show that, I know some people actually that cold plunge before bed.
Yeah.
But I thought it was you wanted to create that internal cool temp.
Yes.
And so using heat for however long, I don't know if the studies show or what there are any studies, but creating heat, and then when you get out, that your body cools down.
Your body works to cool down. You keep sweating after to cool your body temp down. Our bodies are beautiful at thermoregulation. It's incredible, the process from the heat cycles and the cold cycles as well, from when we introduce ourselves to the cold, what our body does. And that's why Dr. Andrew Huberman's big on cold in the morning, because it seems a little bit counterintuitive, but it actually will increase your core body temp, which you want for wakefulness and for alertness, because you cool your body down, then your body's working really hard through a thermogenesis process to create heat so that it can warm yourself up. And through that process, you're going to stimulate your metabolism. You're going to get everything revved up and moving, which is great for wakefulness and alertness, and just promotes general wakefulness. So I do like hot tub at night. Some people love cold tub at night, and the reason they like it at night because it also spikes. It gives you an acute dose of stress, which you think that's probably not very good, especially before bed.
Yeah.
But what happens is it gives you that spike, so then you come down, and when you come down from that, you go all the way down into a nice rest. Your body's like, okay, cool, we're off. Like, we'll go down into rest mode. Our bodies are smart. They're picking up on other cues. It's not so binary of this in the morning or this. It's so dynamic, and everybody's different. That's something that I teach in our big approach here at Edge Theory Labs as well. We come from the science-backed approach when we're designing protocols. We have a lot of great protocols, proprietary protocols as well. We work with athletes and teams all over the place to really dial in, but everybody's different, and every day is different. Every time you get into water, there's different things happening. Your mental state, your mood, where you're at in your diet, your sleep, everything is like we're this beautifully biodynamic energy, and everything is a little bit different every single day, and every body responds differently to different things. So I know some people that love the cold right before bed, and some people it jacks them up and they're too awake after, and so they like it in the morning. Some people like both. So I'm always encouraging everybody, as Wim Hof beautifully says, feeling is understanding. Is what feels right for you, what feels good for you. We often get, I'm sure you could appreciate this as well with your background, but we often get too much into the prescription mindset of, even in the holistic space of, what do I need to do? Give me the protocol, give me the prescription. What do I need to do? I'm going to do this. And if I do this, then I will be better. And there's some value to that. But in my opinion, the next level of that is, what do you need? How does it feel when you do this? How can you be your own coach and give yourself what you need? Because every day is different. Every body's different. So that's a little bit of the approach that I like with the cold.
Yeah. Something too that you mentioned, I just started doing cold shower. I got into the rage of cold showers when a couple of years ago, like you said, when it kind of became the rage with Wim Hof. And then I dialed that back, and now I'm kind of back into it. And I'm really, I hate it, but I'm also falling in love with it because I've just noticed so what I do is and I want to talk to you about this, but one of the things I know is you mentioned wakefulness. And so I feel alive when I take my cold shower, and then I go and I see my kids for breakfast and stuff, and I am on like cloud nine, and they hate me because I'm so happy. And I'm like, I'm high energy anyways, as you know, but yeah. I am like buzzing. And, Dr. Anna Lemke wrote Dopamine Nation, and there's a quote in there, and she talks about dopamine, but she says, I think you get like a 500% increase in neurogenesis, and obviously dopamine, which is that's the motivation hormone. People have always mistaken it with a pleasure. There's some truth there, but motivation, get up and go. And there's a 500% increase in neurogenesis. So from cold exposure, cold baths.
Yeah. So the reason you're feeling so great is because it's the combination of dopamine and norepinephrine and noradrenaline.
Yep.
And that's going to make you feel super alert and awake and alive, and dopamine as well, which is going to feel good. But like you said, it's the dopamine loop continuum that we're closing a loop of saying, I'm going to do something. I'm going to turn the shower cold, and I'm going to do it. And then you get out and you feel, not only do you get the actual chemical release, but you feel that benefit of doing something that you said you were going to do and something that was hard. Yeah. We as humans, as high performers, we love this. We get so much motivation, energy, momentum from doing the things that we say we're going to do, from checking off our to-do list, if you will. And especially when that requires hard things, when we can eat the frog or do the one thing, the hard thing, especially first, then we feel great. And so that's referred to as the dopamine loop continuum, and we're closing that loop. So you're doing that, and then you're feeling this rush of, you're getting adrenaline. It's a really good high quality dose of adrenaline, and people are worried about adrenaline and cortisol spiking, but because it's what's referred to as hormetic stress or willful conscious dose, you're doing it to yourself. Incredible benefits with that. It's the difference between chronic stress and hormetic stress. We're all stressed out. Most people are stressed out, but they're chronically stressed out. So they wake up and they're going up, and they're redlining throughout the day. They're just up here. It's like they got a cortisol drip that's just constantly dripping every single day through their blood. And why we like these things like the cold, like high intensity interval workouts, like sauna, is these hormetic stressors are really clean, high quality doses of stress that are going to spike, and then they're going to drop off. And so it's doing that on a physiological level, which can help us manage the mental side of things for when we're increasing our stress tolerance, so that you get out of that cold shower. And I'm willing to bet that just the little stuff that might have stressed you out right after probably doesn't register on your radar as much. Probably doesn't stress you out as much because you're feeling that cloud nine, you're feeling that buzz because you've just showed your body, hey, this is real stress, and look how we were able to regulate. Look how we were able to breathe through it.
Totally. And so you're actually saying, and even we were talking about this offline, being a holistic health coach, I notice we are in chronic stress with everybody I deal with. Yeah. Everybody's stressed chronically. And so I do think about that whole cortisol spike, and I worry about, some clients will ask me, well, should I be doing cold therapy? Sure. I mean, I obviously know that there's great hormonal changes and the dopamine we're talking about, but if you're chronically stressed, you still think it's still okay because you're saying it's a different type of stress than that hermetic stress. It's actually okay.
Yes, I would also caveat by saying some people are like severely chronically stressed out and their adrenals are just completely shot and they're on like red lining, and putting them into such a high dose of stress could have negative effects. So, but I recommend everybody starting with cold water immersion. So there's cool water immersion, and then there's cold water immersion. Cool water immersion is like 70 degrees. You're still getting the effects of cool water immersion, which is...
That does something?
Yeah, it still does something to us. And there's something with the thermal conductivity of water as well, like that we know it's similar to being like in the womb. So there's all these hydrotherapy benefits we get from water, period, from being in water, that hydrostatic pressure of just being surrounded and immersed in water. There's inherent benefits about that. But there's studies that show that, one of my favorite studies shows that we're going to activate the cold shock system. We're going to activate our sympathetic fight or flight mode, getting into water as cold as 68 degrees. Now that's not very cold, right? 68 degrees. Nothing. But you're still, and what the science shows us, again, I like to look at the science, and that's part of the reason.
That's why I wanted to come to you too.
Heck yeah, man. And that's part of the reason we hired a director of performance and coaching, Samuel Whiting. He's one of the top in the industry. Like, he's the kind of guy where people ask Wim Hof to go speak, and he can't go, and they recommend Samuel to go. Wow. So he's top in the industry. He's been a Wim Hof instructor, one of the first waves of Wim Hof instructors since 2017, I think. Incredible guy. And we hired him, and he works with us to help us on our community engagement, to help us with our protocols, with our science-backed approach. So he's reading studies all day long, and we're synthesizing what is it, because it's really like, this is just wild west, and it's just, this is all brand new. We're on the leading edge of this real mainstream approach to cold water immersion. The studies are coming out more and more. And so we were looking at a study the other day of 68 degrees, you're getting that activation. And then at 57 degrees Fahrenheit, or roughly 14 degrees Celsius, is one of the most famous papers by Dr. Susanna Soberg that Huberman dubs the Soberg principle of cold water swimming, and showing that the metabolic and thermogenesis of the brown fat activation, which is a whole rabbit hole that we can get into. We don't need to get into, but incredible things. And the brown adipose tissue was just linked to shrinking tumor sizes in a mice study, and also in one human study as well. So there's incredible stuff that's going around this. But to back up to the original question, and the point of our conversation here is, I would introduce the cold water immersion. Start at 60 degrees. Start at 55 degrees. You're going to anybody gets in 55 degree temperature water, they're going to have to regulate. They're going to it's cold enough to get your attention for sure. Yeah. But it's also not as extreme of a stress that's going to overload your system perhaps. So I always like to start, I recommend beginners 55, 50 degrees. That's part of the reason why I love the edge tub, is because we're able to choose the temperature versus just dumping ice and guessing of like, it can be way too warm, it can be way too cold. But there is a lot of, I think everybody sees on social media, or you see the sexy stuff that lands on your feed is cutting a hole into the ice and going in, or breaking the ice in your horse trough and going into that, or being surrounded in ice at 33, 34 degrees. And that sells, that's sexy, and that's trendy, if you will. And there's a space for that as well, of showing yourself, hey, I'm capable of this. This is fantastic. But to answer your initial question of people that are chronically stressed out, don't start there. I really recommend don't start there. Start with something a little bit milder where you're still going to get the benefits, and then you can start to build a relationship with it. Because if that person starts there, they're not going to want to come back to it anyway. It's going to be a bad experience. Like, maybe they'll get through it, but they'll be like, oh, that was intense. Maybe they feel better after. Fantastic. But if you start at 50 degrees, you're going to feel better, and you're going to, hopefully, my goal is you build a relationship with it. It starts to become a practice, and then you can start to take the temperatures cooler and make the duration longer.
I love that you said that. I had a client, he found out I was doing cold showers. I was telling him about it, and he goes, oh, I got to go. I'm going to do this. I'm like, yes, but slowly do 30 seconds, do 10 seconds, do 1 minute at the end of your shower, do 30 seconds, then go back to hot, And I remember Wim Hof's 10-week program, he even talks about that, which I love. Like, let's just slowly build up to it. There's no need to like prove that I'm a man and I
Yeah.
can do this. And so, but I love that. But and we were just talking before. So and let's on that note talk a little bit about and like you just highlighted the studies, and I was talking to you about a professional bodybuilder who I just interviewed, and Brad Rowe, amazing guy, and he's like, Joel, like I want it to be like 32 degrees, like on the point, and there's that idea like it has to be, but you were saying, and you kind of alluded to already, but I don't know how much more you can say of just like, no, the studies, you know, yours goes as cool as 37 degrees.
Correct.
And so that's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be 32.
Right.
The studies are showing 55, 67, 68.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and if you want that extra shock, then you can add some ice to it as well if you want to. We have people that do that are just wired for that. And I've been in water of all ranging temperatures. I've been in sub-freezing water. And what I mean by that is some waters, if they're constantly moving, like a river, in certain temperatures that are below freezing, the 32 degrees is freezing temperature, right? So 32 degrees, it becomes ice. But if you're in water that's moving, it can get down to, I've been into water that's 29 degrees before, which is nuts. That's freaking cold. 29 degree water is cold, but 32 is freezing if you're in a static temperature. And there's a place for that, and there's an exploration for that of exploring how capable your body is of handling in those situations and giving yourself that higher load. It's like putting extra plates on your bench press when you're doing bench press. But there tends to be a lot of, what I've noticed, there tends to be a lot of ego involved in this space of how cold can you get the temp and how long can you stay in? And that's a pretty dangerous recipe, because I've seen some bad things. Like I've seen things happen that are preventable because we get something called after drop when you're in cold water for that long, which is when the warm and cold blood mix. When you get back out, it can be really painful and it can be really intense and can be scary.
I've had that in Idaho just with my hand freezing, and then I will go sometimes. I don't really do it anymore, but initially I would go like run hot water over it, and it actually made it worse.
Oh yeah,
I was like, oh my god, it's like burning my hand. Yeah,
there's a story I'll be able to tell you offline legally. I can't say it on this podcast, but there's a story involving
when we take a cold plunge later. You can
I'll tell you something you'll appreciate. Remember to bring me back to this, but I've seen grown men cry, and I've experienced it first. And my instructor, who has been my mentor in the space that I was mentioning earlier, Joran, the first time that he guided me and our group through, he just said, all right, go in the cold. Didn't give us any instruction, just said, go in the cold. We're going to go in for a 4-minute immersion. And this is at 33, 34 degrees. And we go in and we get out, and everybody's kind of like freaking out as that after drop's coming on, and it's super painful. And people are like running back up to the cabin to get a warm shower. I remember I had to go in my sleeping bag, put on all my layers, and I was shivering for maybe 15, 20 minutes after, just uncontrollably. And I was looking at the guy next to me, and he's literally crying, looking at his hands. And it was kind of like a war zone. I was like, this is nuts. And he did that to show us what happens when we just go do this without any mental training. And then that next day, he taught us some different things that we can do. Like you see Wim Hof goes into horse stance when that like wide squat, activating your glutes and your core with the arm movements and your shoulders, and activating your body and breathing properly, and then getting back out. And when you get back out, that's the most intense part, because when you go into the cold, all of your blood goes to your core to protect your core, because your body's smart. We can live without our arm, but we need our liver and kidney. So the blood goes there to protect our core, our viscera. And then when we get out, that flushes back out to our extremities, flushes out lactic acid, inflammation. That's the benefit happens. The benefit happens is the response to cold is a stressor, not necessarily when you're in the cold. It's what happens when you get out and your body goes back to hormesis and goes back to its homeostasis. And so but then you have all this cold blood from your extremities that comes back and hits your core. And when it does that, it can get you super shivery. So if you go too quickly, or you go right to a towel and put warm clothes back on, you confuse your body, because your body's like, your body's getting receptors from your skin saying, okay, my skin's warm, so we're good. So I'm going to dilate my vascular system and open back up. But then all this cold blood's going to rush to my core and I'm going to get shivery. So we learn the value in getting out in that third chapter, if you will, and getting back to horse stance and getting back to breathing and putting your hands together and visualizing your veins opening back up and sending the blood flow and being really present with the pain, quote unquote, with the sensation that you're feeling and the aliveness that you're feeling, and what a difference that made the next day. Everybody, we were able to do a longer immersion, and everybody was super stable after, and I never experienced anything like that. So there's techniques to it as well. We call it the three phases. There's the pre-cooling, which is before getting in. There's the intra-cooling, which is during the tub, and then there's the post cooling, and that's after you get out of the tub. And all equally important phases. Most people just like to focus on that. So that's a little bit more about, like, I've seen it can be really, really, really challenging with that. And but coming back to your original point, your original point was around, do you need it that cold?
Yeah.
Yeah. The answer is no. We're all about minimum effective dose. What's the minimum effective dose to get you the result that you want? And as someone who's a high performer, a coach, you probably can appreciate that.
Yeah, and in your mind, in your opinion, and I know I hear a lot, and I don't know if these are based on studies or what, but I hear a lot of high performers, 3 minutes minimum effective dose, 37 degrees. Is that what you're kind of hearing in this circle of space?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
There's no scientific fact, or there's no researcher's paper that I'm aware of that's citing 3 minutes at 37 degrees. Again, that Dr. Susanna Soberg paper is the widely referenced one right now in the space, and that was 11 minutes per week at 55 degrees, 14 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
And that 11 minutes per week broken up in a couple minutes, a couple times a week, basically. Not necessarily all at once, but doing 3 minutes a couple times a week, or 2 to 3 minutes a day. So 2 to 3 minutes a day at sub 60 degree is scientifically the minimum effective dose. Now, what happens is when you can start there, you start to adapt really quickly, because our bodies are beautiful and they adapt to what we throw their way. And so you might notice that after a week of doing 55 degrees at 2 minutes, you're like, okay, I can handle this. I want to go a little bit colder. And that's when you start to explore, okay, what happens if I go to 3 minutes? What happens? Am I fully immersed? What happens if I bring my hands in and I get up to my neck so I can get my lymph nodes underneath the ice and get my lymphatic system supercharged, right? What happens if I explore dunking my head? There's all these different ways to interact with the cold. And that's something we're working on building out, and all of our users, our customers, get access to our guided immersion library of all these different guided immersions of how to interact with the cold in the tub in interesting, unique, and challenging ways that all come back to the science approach for it. So people can work, and again, everybody's different. People can work their way up to doing 37 degrees. I have plenty of friends that do 3 minutes at 37 degrees, and that protocol works great for them. So if that works for you, fantastic. Yeah. But that's not the threshold of, if you're not hitting 3 minutes at 37 degrees every day, then you're not getting the benefits of the cold. You can just get into the cold for 30 seconds, and in my opinion, there's going to be so many benefits you already get.
Yeah. Talk just briefly about the hands out. I know when I did a cold immersion with you at a seminar, you had me have my hands out, and what's the I mean, obviously there's something with the extremities, but I thought that was interesting that
you for beginners, I like to first, there's 3 levels to getting into the tub that I look at and refer to. The first is just getting in and sitting down, right? Your arms outside of the tub, so your body up to your breast line maybe is immersed. That's like level 1 of sitting down into our tub. And then level 2 is bringing your arms in and keeping your hands out of the water. So maybe the water's up to your shoulder line, you sink down a little bit, but your hands are out. And that actually makes a big difference. Getting your arms in, getting more of your mass into the water. It helps, it brings your core body temp down much quicker. So if you feel really confident, like sitting on the edge of the tub like this, then bring your arms in. And then that next level is full body immersion, which is the goal to get everybody to, which is scooting down, getting your hands in, your shoulders in, so you're up to your neck or your chin, ideally, in the water. And that's, you're going to get the best benefits. And then ideally doing a head dunk as well in the beginning, middle, or end of dunking your head to be able to get that benefit also. And so I always like to, for beginners, if we're doing a big seminar with lots of people, if I'm working more one-on-one, that might be different. But if we're doing lots of people through, we're taking, 70 people through, then we want to start with the hands out, just because it can be enough of a shock already. And if you get your hands in, then what happens is most people go right to their hands, and it can be very painful. And especially doing something you can experiment with is doing just hands immersion, where you're outside of the water and doing just your hands. It can be really challenging. So getting your hands in and then breathing through that. So I like to work people down in those levels. And if I'm working with a beginner, I'll start with them out. I'll see how they're regulating. If they get over that hump and they're feeling good, then I'll invite them to go down. And then if they're feeling good, hands in. And then the next level past that too is moving the water around. So we build up a thermal layer when we sit still. Part of the reason we built in circulation in the edge tubs, it hits you right at your chest so that it feels like you're more in a river or that's moving water. But to get that extra boost, moving the water around really flushes that, and you can notice how that makes the practice more dynamic, and it forces you to breathe, because people can be sitting in the cold like super still and it's okay, and then you move, you're like, ooh, it's icy, it hurts, right?
I've done that.
So next time you're in the cold, start moving the water around and see how that forces your breath, see how that forces your focus. It's fun things to play with.
Yeah. Something also with the head. Are there there's mechanoreceptors everywhere, but are there is there something just neurologically with the head?
Yeah.
Because I've heard, and you just said with the hands, you could just put your hands in the water.
Mhm.
I've heard something like you could just and I've been experimenting with this in the shower. There's a difference when I let the cold water hit my face versus hitting my
Yes.
chest. I'm getting my whole body cold with the chest, but when you hit it with the face, there's something going on different.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Very astute. You picked up on it.
Yeah.
It's something that's referred to as the mammalian dive reflex.
Okay, I've heard of this.
Now, this is really fascinating. I learned this from Sam, our director of coaching and performance, and he did this whole video series on it because he was fascinated by it. And we as mammals have this response for when we wet our face on a breath hold. So if we hold our breath and then we dunk our head or we wet our face, then it actually, what it does is it helps us slow down our heart rate. It helps us oscillate into our parasympathetic rest and digest state, which is very interesting. And it's built as a reflex for survival, because if we get head dunked into cold water, we got to stay calm to keep our body alive. And so what happens is when we wet our face or we get our head underwater, that physiologically happens. We have a mechanism built into our body that helps us with that. So that's why I love dunking as soon as I get in. When I get in, I dunk first because it does help. It can be a little shock at first, but you notice it can help you lower. I don't know if you notice that as well when you put your face under. It helps you slow down a bit. It helps you regulate
in the shower faster. And so then I started doing it more because I'm like, I think I remember hearing something about it. I didn't know it was the mammalian. So so right away, dunk in, because the shock, I mean, it's dramatic, but it's going to help you thermoregulate faster.
Exactly. The same thing like, jump into the pool. Like just jump in. Just don't wait and just jump in and get it over with. There's something about that as well. But it's also because we have under our cheeks, the palm of our hands and our soles of our feet is what's referred to as glabrous skin. And that skin is, without getting too scientific with it, that's like a direct portal to our core body temperature. So versus most people think if you want to cool down your body temp, take a wet towel was the first place you want to put it. Maybe your back of your neck or your head. That's actually not where you want to put it. That's going to have the opposite effect. That's going to be like putting ice on the thermostat temperature gauge, because it feels good, but in order to get direct access, and it's a way of it's based on how the arteries and the blood vessels line up. And without getting into too much detail around that, just think of these areas as like portals to your core body temp. So if you want to cool your core body temp down very quickly, and there's an amazing study on pull-ups and palm temperature and all double-blind placebo accounted for studies of people who were able to do way more pull-ups based on having their palm temperature cooler. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. So there's something that you might see in like MLB dugouts. They have the cool mitt.
I've seen that.
Yep.
Yeah.
They have the cool mitt. And so it's exactly designed towards that. It's like a cooling device that you put on your hands that cools the palm of your hand, bring your core body temperature down so your muscles can perform better. So those are different pathways. And so we have that underneath our cheekbones. So that's another reason why dunking your head can help you regulate your core body temp.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Something I've just, because when I wake up in the morning, I've been getting up at 4, and then I need to my body. I'm not going to jump in. I personally don't jump into. Some people do. They jump into the shower right away or do whatever. I don't. I like to kind of slowly wake up. So what I've been doing to motivate myself to go into the cold is I've been doing about a 45-minute infrared sauna.
Nice.
And I do that it's kind of like my treat to get heated up. I don't know if it actually makes it any better. And then I go take my cold shower. 3 minutes is what I've been doing, 2 to 3 minutes, depending how I'm feeling at cold temperatures. Do you like that protocol, or is there anything? And here's what I was going to ask you, because the other day I took a cold shower. I didn't have time to do the sauna. And so I just was like, to that day, I was running short on time, so I just went right into the cold shower. And I actually felt like I regulated myself better. And I was like, I wonder if it's because we were just talking about like the heat and stuff. The heat brought the body temperature was out, and then the cold like drastically shocked me. And so I'm just wondering, like, I can still keep that protocol, but yeah, do you like it? And do you know if there'd be any reason why I felt actually more comfortable in the cold, not having gone to the sauna? Here I am heating my body up, thinking I'm doing this great stuff, and yeah.
It's a great protocol. The contrast therapy, as it's often referred to, hot and cold alternating. And the reason why it's fantastic for our body is because cold is a vasoconstrictor. So our vascular system, our veins, our arteries, they close again to keep the warm blood into our core. And so it's a vasoconstriction. And then when we go into the hot, it's vasodilation. It opens up our blood vessels, and we sweat as a result of that. And that helps us cool down our body temp. So it's all this thermoregulation process that's happening. So going back and forth is a vascular flush. It's a great workout for your body for just sitting there and just breathing. It's fantastic. And there are amazing studies on that and amazing studies on the combination of those. The one caveat I mentioned for most people is don't let the heat be a crutch for the cold, and don't let the cold be a crutch for the heat. So what I mean by that is I love that. I mean, we have our sauna right now at 200 degrees kicking, and our cold tubs next to them. And I love that. I hit that almost every day, if not every day here.
Yep.
And I always like to make sure that me personally and anybody that I'm working with as well takes a few minutes in between to regulate. Like, don't jump straight in. Take a few minutes to let your body get back to a baseline to regulate before switching the temperatures, because it can be a bit extreme going right from super hot to super cold. People like that because they're like, all right, if I'm sweating my ass off in here and it's a lot easier to get into the freezing cold water, let me just go in.
Yep.
And you can feel a little dizzy or lightheaded, or it can be a big that's an extreme shift that our body's not normal to have.
Yeah.
There's nothing really. I always look to like nature of where in our physiology adaptation do we have this? Like, what are mechanisms that are being activated? And that extreme of a shift, I don't really see the utility in, let's say. So I love the protocol, but I like being able to, if you're in the sauna for 30 minutes, take 5 minutes out before going into the cold. It makes it a lot harder, but it makes it more beneficial in my opinion.
Okay, yeah, and so I mean, what I do is I do a quick, I have a kind of a gritty ankle, so I've been mobilizing that for 2 minutes. Then I go,
Nice.
actually do a quasi medium temp shower just to like act, because I don't want to take a cold shower washing myself.
Yeah.
I actually do want some heat, and then I go like 2-3 minutes.
That's great.
cold.
Fantastic.
So that seems to be
And you can hit cycles as well too. You can go back and forth. Like, that's what we do oftentimes. Get out of the cold, let yourself regulate first. Don't get in the sauna right away, because again, that quick dilation can actually make you shivery in the sauna, which is odd. It's like you can get out of the cold and get into the sauna and you start sweating, but you're like shivering and shaking. You're like, what's happening to me? And it's just your body going too quickly from opening up and letting that cold blood hit your core.
Yeah. Something that Wim Hof said that has always stuck with me is he said, the cold is noble. You and I were talking about surrendering, being present, how none of us, and many of us, the CEOs, the entrepreneurs, I think a lot of people in this day and age, and I'm seeing it, and it's something that I want to focus more on my own coaching, is being really more of a conscious entrepreneur and reaching that higher level of consciousness and doing more, and from that space, doing good. I have 2 kids, I have a family, and I know I'm totally not present a lot, and I'm something I'm working on and using some techniques and stuff. Talk to me, and I was sharing with you offline how the cold has all these practices, being present, surrendering. As you know, I lost my job a year and a half ago, and the more I surrender and lean into fear and lean into the unknown, so many more good things are happening. And the cold has also brought that to me. Talk about your own experience and like what you've learned of that idea too, of surrendering.
Dude, it's an awesome question. And I love to see the parallels in your life happening right now as well. And the cold is a mirror. It holds up a mirror to our face, and it shines a spotlight on our biggest insecurities, on our limiting beliefs, on our fears, on the stories that we're telling ourselves. Most people, the idea of getting in the cold, or they see people getting cold, so I could never do that. I could never do that. Why? Why? Why do you think that? Your body is literally built for this. Before we became the thermostat generation of having everything at 72 degrees, thermostat controlled car to office space to this, we were forced to adapt and to regulate. Our bodies have these mechanisms. They have this utility that's just lying dormant. And when we can start to build that relationship and reconnect with these mechanisms, then we start to realize just how strong and capable and powerful we are, far more than our belief than we think we are. And that's super empowering. So I love seeing that. I love taking someone through the cold. It's like, I could never do that. And then coaching them to the point where they're willing to step in and give it a shot, and watching them get over that hyperventilation in the beginning and get to a regulated breath state and get out and feel so empowered and alive. And there's something special that's happening there. There's something that's very intimate, and it's an intimate practice, and that's the way that I view it. And how I came to learn about the parallel between cold and surrendering, and like you say, Wim mentions the cold is noble, is the first, and I'm reminded of this anytime I slip up and I forget, but if you try to approach the cold with the mindset of, all right, let's go, let's do this, and hype yourself up, you will get smacked silly. Like, the cold will humble you so quickly. I've gotten humbled time and time again, and I see it
And you train, and you
exactly.
train it.
Exactly.
You do this regularly.
Yes, yes. And I explore the boundaries of this.
That's humbling for me to know, because sometimes I'm like, there's some days I have good days in the cold, and there's some days I'm like, I just want to get out.
Seriously, man. Yeah. And that's an intimate process. And there's an art to that, right? And there's an exploration of that. And it's not just so cut and dry.
You know what I tell myself, Joshua? I say, come on, man. Your mitochondria should have adapted to this. It should be harder and stronger. You're supposed to be getting more resilient every time. You've done this for like weeks now, months. Why are you not as resilient?
Yeah. And think about the cold is serving you the medicine you need right there in that moment. What is that as a mirror? Where else in your life is that message coming through to you? I should be here. I should be there. You should be adaptive. Where are you getting too much in your head versus being in the now of like, let me be in the sensation. Let me notice what's coming up and breathe through it. And so if we go to like macho, like, all right, let's go. And this is part of the reason why across the board, I've taken thousands of people through cold immersion at this point with my team as well. And women do better than men in the cold. And I think this is part of the reason why, especially women that have given birth, they're the best. If I could isolate one population that does the best in the cold as beginners, women who have given birth, because they know how you have to surrender and open up in the intensity of a moment. And you can't try to fight it. Men, we try to repress. Women are a bit more expressive versus men can be repressive. And the cold will humble you. The cold always wins. The cold does not give a shit. The cold will always win and always beat you. So as I learned what that felt like, trying to have that approach and how I'd get smacked still and be like, this is painful. This is tough. This is making me agitated. I don't feel good with this, to, okay, the way that you thrive in the cold is surrendering. It's relaxing your muscles. It's softening your breath. It's a surrender experiment. And through that, there's strength. And that's what the cold taught me. There's strength in surrender. The only way to successfully thrive in the cold is to let go, to release, to surrender, to let the cold embrace you. And when you do that and you can feel the intensity of that and you can breathe and be present in the intensity of that, then you're dancing with the cold. That's the real strength, in my opinion. And then so as a man and as an entrepreneur and as a go-getter, that introduced a new paradigm for me of the idea that what if being go, 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 go and finish the rep and all this stuff and that hard kind of masculine approach, what if there's another way to balance that? And there's always a time and a place for that. I love that. I mean, you and I, we live like that. That warrior mindset is amazing, but what if that true warrior, that conscious warrior, that peaceful warrior, that conscious entrepreneur, and I love those words, it's that conscious entrepreneur, it's that peaceful warrior, it's that combination of the masculine and feminine that represents the yin and the yang that is the whole. And if we can learn to play in both of those energies and both of those lanes, it's this beautiful practice. And that's what the cold is, because you got to get yourself into the cold and getting to that point of like, all right, I'm going to follow through and I'm going to do the thing that my body does not want me to do. That's a very big masculine drive. And then let me get in the cold. Let me surrender into that. That's a very feminine practice. And you get out and you've had this well-rounded, just extreme expression of the fullness of who you really are.
Dude, that is so beautiful. And I never saw it that way until you flipped it on me, because yeah, exactly. Until you said that, and even though like I kind of knew it, but I didn't think of it that way, I would think like the cold is making me tough and resilient, and I did something hard today or whatever. And the times when I'm in the cold in the shower, but it's cold in Idaho, it's cold in my house. Yeah. But when I'm doing the cold and there's times where I'm like, I just want to get out, and I actually start to like slowly get away, and then I go, don't do that, and then I go, I'm in my head. That's why, and I realize I'm in my head. I go, you're in your head. Breathe, connect.
Yes.
Just connect with your breath. And actually, I think of like connecting with the innate in like a higher. And when I start to do that, I'm almost like not out of body, because it's not like it's that serious, but it's this sense of like the cold's not even hurting me anymore. And it's like I've surrendered.
That's it.
I've surrendered, and it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's the most beautiful. It's the most spiritual. It can be the most beautiful, the most spiritual, the most empowering practice, and that's why it's like this has all been a one big story of why I love the cold as a practice, and why I respect the cold, and why I have such reverence for the cold, and why Wim says the cold is noble is because of all this. And then I can pair this with we can jam on the science and the nerdy ways of what's actually happening on a neurochemical level, on a nervous system level, on a regulation level. Like all this stuff just makes so much sense and is so powerful. And then you pair it with the actual practice of stillness and of calm, and to see how it's accessible for everybody. We all have access. I mean, mean, every shower gets cold to some degree. It's like we all have access to cold water. We all have access to air. Air is free. We can breathe it. And that's also why I think there's this interesting thing, and this can lead to a whole other conversation as well, but what is gaining a lot of popularity, but for it to really tip mainstream is going to take a whole big push because there's not a lot you can monetize from this. Like our pharmaceutical company, it's a lot easier to give a pill to prescribe this when it's like, wait, cold water can do all of these things. Like, what if I told you in this one pill, I have all of these things that cold water can give you, but you have to get into cold water for 2-3 minutes a day. So and I'm really inspired, empowered by the movement that's coming and pushing. And that's what I really, and we at Edge Theory Labs are really striving to do, is to be able to plant our flag in the sand and be like, hey, this is a basic human right. And this access to this knowledge, to this resource, to this connection with your body, it's more than just a tub. We're not just we're selling a tub, sure, but it's way more than just a tub for us. It's this idea of connecting people deeper to themselves. And as I just explained there, that concept of connecting deeper with yourself is why I love the cold. It's a gateway to that. It's a practice arena for how you're going to handle stress outside of that. And it's a way to be intimate with yourself in a very powerful way.
Brother, it's a way to finding others.
That's right, man. Yep.
I kind of want to wrap things up, but before I do, I mean, is there anything I didn't ask you that you wish I had? I mean, we covered a lot.
Yeah, we covered some good stuff. I would say is like, where do you start? Like, you don't need to start with this fancy tub. Like, yeah, you've got an amazing tub. When you're ready to make cold immersion daily practice and you're like, I'm hooked on this, I want to do this, we've got an amazing tub. We've got payment plans starting at $170 a month. If you're doing it more than once a week, you're going to save money on that if you're just buying ice otherwise. So we've got the tub ready for you, but you don't need to start. You don't need a tub to start cold immersion. In fact, I'd recommend starting where you're at, which is turn your shower cold. At the end of your next shower, turn it cold and start breathing long, slow exhales and see what that does. See how you feel, maybe resistance around that. You can do a 30-second cold shower. You can do a 10-second cold shower and start to build that muscle of that hormetic stress of doing something that's difficult, and then you start to reap the benefits of that. So I would say start there. Go on our website as well. We've got some great guided immersions. We have a Cold Water 101 mini course, Cold Water Immersion 101 mini course, free mini course you can download. 5 days of each day is prescribing. There's a shower protocol in there as well for helping you do your immersion and explaining some of the high-level science behind it. So start with turning your shower cold. That's where I started. And that's what led me to eventually doing something extreme like booking an Iceland retreat and then leading retreats and becoming certified and all those things. So start by turning your shower cold.
I love that because, a friend that a client I was just talking to about what I said, what I'm doing, the cold showers. And I think he even made a comment, yeah, but it's just a shower. It's not going to do that much. I'm like, but you're not doing anything right now, right? And how many of us always say, like, I'm not going to do that because it's not that much of a difference. That's like when I hear people say, when I tell them that you could be doing 10 push-ups a day, and if you just kept doing that and you consistently did, they're like, oh, but I need to go to the gym. But you have ability to do 100 push-ups throughout your day, but you refuse to because the idea is like that wouldn't be good enough. So you'd rather actually do nothing. It's so funny the way we
It's so true.
the way we,
it's so
psych
true.
ourselves out of doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Available.
And the science does support that you're going to get great benefit from just doing a cold shower.
Yeah.
You're still going to get amazing benefit. And there's a lot of room to explore with cold showers alone. That's something that I'm excited we're doing a lot more content around too, and guided immersions around to help people in their beginning journey of different immersions with the cold shower, different strategies. How do you get in the shower? How do you alternate between hot and cold? All those different things, because it's a great place to start.
One question I want to ask you actually just really quick is you've grown so much. I see professional athletes, Gary DeBrecca. I see everybody using your tub. Just before we even, I want to ask you some. I always end the show with some final round questions.
Cool.
But I wanted before that other question, I just asked you anything I didn't ask you. Any exciting projects? What's coming up for
Yeah. Oh, super exciting. So we got a lot of good stuff in the pipeline. We have this spring. I'm not sure when is the podcast going to air.
I don't know. When do you want it to air? I'm probably like a month and a half out.
Cool.
But I can.
May would be good. May 1st or sometime in May.
May done.
May. Okay. So as you're listening to this in May, you've seen we have this beautiful new website. It's gorgeous, and we actually have our new product offering as well. So we have our Edge tub that is the current tub that the tub that we had in the past. That's going to have a bigger XL tub that you can order, and that's the pro version of the tub. And then we're going to have our more of an entry-level version of the tub that's going to be more affordable, slightly less power, but it's going to be smaller. It's going to be more compact, more quiet, really good for residential and for entry-level offerings as well. So really excited about this new offering that we have of these two tubs to really widen the market and give customers what they really need. And then we got got some really exciting stuff up our sleeves from a future product development standpoint within the cold immersion vertical, some stuff that has not been done yet, and outside of the cold immersion vertical as well, and just more of the recovery vertical. But the stuff I'm really excited about personally is more of the quote unquote software side of things. Like we've got an amazing team developing hardware with a lot of experience developing hardware products, but we're also developing software as well. We're developing software around this. How can we get more science-based with this approach? How can we have a bigger guided immersion library so that you can continue your streak of daily cold immersion and access a coach that's guiding you through that tub, similar to a Peloton kind of thing. So I'm really excited about the stuff that we're working in that department.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So anything else? That was it?
That's
we
it, yeah.
Covered it. I mean, I think we'll come back for when more and more good things are happening to your company. We'll bring you back.
Love it.
I actually kind of want to geek out with you on brown fat.
Yes.
That's just really
It's
cool stuff.
it's the cutting edge part of the scientific literature and research around this space right now.
And I wasted a whole podcast never bringing that up. But that's
We
why we'll
talked
do a
about
part
it.
2. And,
That's right.
And we'll talk about, because I think the brown fat activation just ties so much in. And I just gratuitous plug for my book that will be coming out hopefully in April. I talk about brown fat.
Amazing.
And I actually reference some of the cold.
That's right.
Stuff,
That's right.
And talking about the mitochondria and why it's so important,
Yes.
and you're charging that. So it
Yeah.
is huge. And that's another thing we didn't even really go down the rabbit hole, but we'll do it next time.
We sure will.
All right, some final round questions. I'm curious, man. What was there a choice, or maybe some choices that you made throughout your life that you think made you who you are today, or was there a choice?
It's a great question. I would say that the choices that I made were responding to adversity in the ways that I chose to respond to adversity. Going back to my earlier story of bouncing back from these injuries and the way that I chose to respond and the way that I chose to look for the silver lining and see and explore how might this be happening for me, not necessarily to me. And I'm very, very, very fortunate and grateful and acknowledging the fact that I had a mother and a father and a support system that were able to teach me some of those ways. I grew up with my mom saying attitude, and gratitude, those 3 things, like all day long. And that gave me a major advantage and a leg up from being able to have that mindset programmed in that way from a young age. But I would say the choices of how I chose to and how I choose to respond to adversity and how I choose to even in real time, like last Friday was a bit of a challenging day, and it's like these ice bath moments. Friday was an ice bath for me. It's like, how can I breathe through this? How can I view this as an ice bath moment of the ice bath getting out of the tub and into real life, and how can I regulate? How can I notice my stress levels increasing? How can I breathe? So I would say that the way that I choose to respond to adversity would be the answer to that question.
Yeah, so good. And it's so funny you say attitude of gratitude, because that's how I've known you. It's just that is who you are. That energy, that positivity.
Love it.
I love it. And it's so cool that your mom embodied that, because you naturally, subconsciously grew that.
Totally.
So it's so cool. You're such a force, I think, in just what you're doing in positivity in the wellness and health world. Like, who inspires you?
It's a great question. Who inspires me? Honestly,
and it doesn't have to be a health and wellness person.
Yeah.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be anybody.
The people that inspire me are all of our customers and people that are doing cold immersion day in and day out and are using this as a tool to explore. Like, it's so inspiring. I have written on my whiteboard by my desk in quotations, "They're waiting for you." Like, there are people out there waiting and getting. Just got an email the other day from someone who was writing in saying he suffers from PTSD, and for the first time since he came back from combat overseas, he felt relief from his PTSD after getting in one of our tubs. And I get chills even as I say it. It's just incredible, and seeing and getting the testimonials of people saying, like, I have more energy showing up for my kids and my family, more present, or for work, and I was just without my edge tub on my business for the first time, and I felt like I was missing my secret weapon. And so that inspires the crap out of me and inspires me to keep moving, to keep pushing through, to keep increasing my tolerance and capacity for holding space for others and for handling challenges that come my way, because I know that they're waiting for me. And so that honestly inspires me the most, of just the people that are making these choices to better themselves and that are making these choices to better themselves that aren't taking the prescription or the pill or looking for the the silver bullet, that aren't looking for that quick fix, but that are doing the work. Because it takes work. There's all these benefits we're talking about here. They're amazing, but it takes getting your ass to freezing cold water to make it happen. It doesn't get easier. You get better at it, but it never gets easier before you get into that water. And so the people that do that day in and day out inspire me.
That is so good. And I don't know what your slogan is for Edge Theory, but you mentioned in the beginning, this is more than a tub.
That's literally one of our slogans.
Is that the slogan? That has to be, because
yeah.
it's so cool that you never think about that. I think, and sometimes we get caught up in the day-to-day operations, and it just becomes a thing, and then you get that boom, that testimony, that impact, and you're like, oh, it brings you back down to, that's why I do this.
Yeah, and it helps as an entrepreneur as well. The thing I'm always rationalizing is, we've grown a lot. I mean, we're sitting in office space. We've got 13 people working with us now, a team of 13 in a space in less than a year. Like, that's nuts. It's been explosive in the best ways possible, explosive growth. And with that comes so many challenges. Like, it's easy to see the highlights and see, cool, working with the LA Clippers and UFC and all these amazing things happening. Yes, it's incredible. But then there's the other side of that, the challenges that you don't see, you don't deal with. And so we have a lot of challenges. We're working out, we're a first generation hardware product, and we keep refining our product, making it better. Customer support is this whole realm, and we're striving to have the best customer support. And so I know that it takes being able to deal with those challenges of when shit hits the fan and things don't work and you have an upset customer, to be able to work through that to get the good stuff. Like, I know that for every time I'm willing to go above and beyond and to handle, my capacity for handling the challenges and the curveballs increases my capacity and our capacity as a team to be able to provide more of that good, more of the PTSD getting relief, more of the energy and the weight loss and the change, the real change that's happening. So always as an entrepreneur, I'm always looking at that, and I encourage other people to look at that as well, is what does being able to handle this allow you to do? And so looking at the challenges that way has been really helpful.
Yeah, love that. Books. I'm a big reader. Are there like a top 1 to 3 books that just jump out at you as like, man, this changed my life? Everybody that's listening to this podcast should go out and read this one, or just, I don't know.
Yeah, my favorite book is Way of the Peaceful Warrior. I mentioned Peaceful Warrior even on this podcast earlier. Dan Millman. Yeah, fantastic. If you haven't read it, I love the types of books that are like award-winning self-help books, but they're told in a story where it's like a narrative that you can follow. So I love that one. I reread that every single year, honestly. So that's one of my favorites. I also love the Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Harari. Yeah. Fascinating, of just seeing from an evolutionary standpoint of how we've adapted our physiology over time. I love that perspective. So that's another great one I'd recommend. I have a book list that I can share with you if you want. Put it in the show notes. Okay, yeah. It's got I break it down under categories. Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey is obviously a great one.
I haven't read that one.
Yeah, Green Lights. Ooh, fantastic one. Great audiobook. If you listen to audiobooks, get Matty McConaughey in your ear and you'll be, it's beautiful. It's a great book. So that's one of my other favorite ones as well. And I'll share the I'll share the list with you as well.
Share the list. This is amazing. Okay, cool. Last 2 questions. We'll wrap it up. What are there rituals? You're the founder of a cold plunge, company. But are there any rituals, hacks, or practices that you do like on a daily basis? Some type of gratitude journaling. What about you?
Yeah, I'm always oscillating. I'm always bringing things in that feel good and they last for some time, and then bringing other things in. Something that's feeling good right now that I'm back to, that I was at early in my career, honestly, and it helped me a lot building relationships. And serendipitous events led me back to being like, what happened to this? I'm gonna bring this back. This feels good. Is writing a handwritten snail mail gratitude note every day. Just let me pick one person if I need to do a little roulette scroll through my phone to see someone. But usually there's someone that's like, oh, I'm grateful for this person. Maybe I talked to them recently and that's why I'm grateful for them. Maybe I haven't and they just popped up in my mind. But I'm going to just write on my paper. I've got like these note cards. I'm just going to write like, hey, so-and-so, thinking of you, sending you some love, and just writing a gratitude note, a little love letter. Love writing love letters because you love receiving love letters. So send a love letter, and then I text the person, hey, what's your mailing address? And they're like shocked. They're like, are you getting married? Are you sending a save the date? I'm like, no save the date, save the date. Still very single, no save the date, but there'll be a little goodie in the mail. And then they get it, and it always makes their day, or it always comes at a time that they couldn't imagine. So I'm loving that expression of gratitude in that way. That's kind of like a fun little delayed thing,
You
and you
get
send
a
it
high
out there.
off of it, too.
Totally.
Yeah,
And
I
you get
love
two
it.
highs out of it. You get the high out of writing it, and then you get the high when however long it takes to get there, and then you get a text randomly that they just got it, and they're like over the moon, and you get that high again. So
Yeah.
I love that from a gratitude expression, and then
That's so good.
and then just breathing, man. Just taking some deep breaths, even if it's not doing full breath work style, like Wim Hof style breath work. I've just breathing throughout the day has been huge, and grateful to work around people who are also conscious of that. So you just hear, we'll be working quietly at our desk, and you'll just hear people just like doing different breath variations throughout the day, reminding each other to breathe. So just breathing in general.
Yeah, so good and undervalued. People don't realize. I'm guilty of that too.
Yeah.
And I'm connecting more and more with that.
Fantastic.
Just realizing how simple it is. Man, thank you. Last but not least, where can people connect with you, learn more about Edge Theory, and just find out what you and your company are up to?
Absolutely. Instagram, I'd say, is our best point of contact. On Instagram, we're at Edge Theory Labs. I know it'll be in the show notes. My personal Instagram, at Joshua Dean Church. Feel free to reach out. I love connecting with the others, quote unquote. So if you made it this far in the podcast, you're definitely one of the others. So drop me a line, connect. If you're in San Diego, drop me a line. Come check out our headquarters. Hit a sauna and cold plunge over here at the home that we've built. So that's, I would say, Instagram's the best way. Website, edgetheorylabs.com. Everything else through there.
Amazing, brother. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. I just want to say in closing, I'm so appreciative for what you're doing. I consider it truly, I was reflecting on it before you came here, like truly a privilege and an honor to know you and to call you a friend and a brother in this lifetime. And I'm just such a fan of what you're doing and how you're going about doing the personal work and doing that in a very forward-facing way and seeing the results speak for themselves with that. And I'm just like, it just makes so much sense. And I truly do love you, brother. And I'm very, very grateful to have you in my network.
Means a lot, man. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Man.